Okay, so we're going to make this a faster version. The formulas we're going to be working with are going to be the growth formulas. I believe you guys already know that. And then we're going to be using for the brand funnel conversion, it's going to be the later stage. So I'll make that stage L, that means later stage, always on top of the earlier stage E. So for example, here in where to consider, we're going to put the consider percentage on top of the awareness percentage and then just divide. And then for the weighted average, it's going to be quite a long syntax. We're going to do, this can be either frequency or amount per use. We'll just use frequency as an example. Frequency of loyal times the number of loyal users and we're going to add that to the frequency of occasional users times the number of occasional users, all divided by 5, or the number of users, total number of users. Okay, so now that we have both of those, we're going to start by solving the brand funnel on the bottom left. So starting with the funnel conversion, we just talked about it. It's going to be later stage over earlier stage. So 65 over 80, it's about 81.3. 50 over 65, about 76.9. And now what do we do if it shows us the trial to loyalty? The trial but not the loyalty. So we have there 50%. That loyalty we don't know, so we're gonna denote it with X, is equal to 20%. So basically, this just means that X is 20% of 50. So if 50 is the whole, we're going to make the corresponding 100% match the 50%. And now we just cross multiply, so X times 100 is, well, X times 100. And 50 times 20 is 1000. Cancel out the zeros, X is equal to 10. So that means our loyalty is 10%. So you can see here, we're gonna do the exact same thing for advocacy. Same process, we're going to get 6%. And then we're going to do the number of consumers in a year. So actually, if you pay attention to this left-hand side, you'll notice it says growth is 0%, which means that this is just the same as year 1 million. And now we need to find the number of consumers in a year. We can do that by starting with the trial percentage, which is 50%. So our target population 1 million times the trial percentage gives us the number of consumers in year 1. The loyalty gives us the number of loyal users, and then we just subtract the loyal users from the number of consumers to get the occasional users. Okay, and then the next thing we're gonna do is finish the rest of this brand funnel. Same process. So 80 over 90, that gives us 88.9. X over 80 is equal to 80%. So X times 100 is X times 100. 80 times 80 is about 6,400. Cancel out the zeros. We're going to get 64%. And then we're going to do the exact same thing until we get 8%, 4%. Same process. I assume you guys know growth percentage, so we're just going to skip that step. Very easy equation there. Now we can use the trial and the loyalty for year 2 to get those corresponding values here. And then we can solve for the growth percentage as well for all of them. Trial corresponds to the number of consumers. Loyal corresponds to Well, the number of loyal users. So at this point, we're going to want to go to the right side because we need the average annual consumption to multiply that to the number of consumers to get the volume and the revenue, which we don't have right now. So the relationship between the two is number of consumers times average annual consumption is equal to the volume. We don't have volume for year 1, but we have year 2. So the volume of year 2, we're going to divide that by 640,000. That's going to give us about 2.350. And then we're going to use that 2.350 to help us figure out frequency per year. So frequency per year can be solved using this formula here that we wrote earlier, this one right here. And now we're just going to input those values. So we have here, it says frequency per year of loyal users is 52. So 52 times the number of loyal users in year 1, which is about 100,000. Okay? Plus the 6 frequency of occasional users times the number of occasional users, which would be 400,000 in this case, all divided by 500,000, and that should give us about 15, if I'm not mistaken, 15.2. There we go. So now that we have 15.2, we're going to do the exact same relationship that we established earlier over here with the multiplication sign, that the frequency per year times the amount per use is actually equal to the average annual consumption. So following that logic, we can solve for year 1 as 3.040. And now we need to find the frequency per year for year 2. And we do that by dividing the average annual consumption per consumer divided by the amount per use, which gives us about 11.75. If you want to double check, 11.75 times 0.200 should give you 2.350. And now you can solve for the growth, 0, negative 22. But how do we solve for frequency per year of occasional? That's where it's a little bit difficult. We're going to use this formula. We're going to work backwards in the sense that this time around, we're going to plug in the values, and we'll see here that number of loyal users for year 2 is 80,000. This is now 640,000. The frequency for loyalty is 52. The frequency of occasional is unknown, but we do know that the number of occasional users is 560,000. So we're going to want to isolate variable n as much as we can. We're going to do that by showing that all of this weighted average equation should equal to 11.75, the value we just found here. We're going to start by transposing the 640,000 to the right side, and then we're going to simplify this as well. I believe that's around 4 million. Hold on, let me get my calculator really quickly. Four million 160,000 plus n times 560,000 is equal to And 75 times 6. 7,520,000. We're going to transpose that 4 million. That's going to be n times 560,000 is equal to 3,360,000. And then we're going to divide this 560,000 on both sides, and we'll see that n is actually equal to 6. So now that we know that n is equal to 6, you can just go back here, input 6 here, find out that the growth percent is 0, so growth percent here is also 0. And then we're going to use that same formula to figure out amount per use. So we're given the amount per use of occasional, we're missing that of loyal. If we do that exact same process we just did earlier, that should help us find out the values there. And then, well, growth percentage would be a given in this case. We know the year 2 revenue. We know that, year 2 volume. We know that the average annual consumption times the number of consumers is equal to the volume, so we can find year 1. And because we know year 1 and year 2, we can find the growth percentage. And then from there, since we have the price of year 1, just multiply the volume by the price, very simply, to get our revenue. This over the market size value is equal to our share. Because it says here 0% growth on the price, that stays the same. And then we get to apply price times volume is equal to revenue. And then put the growth percentage there since we solved it. Here it says the growth is 5%, so we know that year 2 is 5% bigger than year 1. Just solve for that. And now that we have that value, we're going to take the revenue from year 2. We're going to divide that by the year 2 market size value, and that would give us our market share. And then we can just solve for a growth percentage from there on. So that should be the entire first page. A little bit faster than the last one I did. So for you guys in a rush, you might be able to watch this more.